On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, we continue our candidate series with the last candidate for the Republican primary on March 3rd, 2026, Keith Branch, who's running against sitting County Commissioner Butch Lauder for the District 7 County Commissioner seat for Johnston County. We talked to Keith a little about him growing up in Smithfield, that he's a graduate of Triple S High School, his time at NC State, his time with the state auditor, his 2 terms on the Johnston County School Board, and his 9 or 10 months as a Johnston County Commissioner in 2017. We also talked to him about why he's moved back to Johnston County and why he wants to be your commissioner for the next 4 years. So if you're interested in this race and the future of Johnston County, listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we have County Commissioner candidate Keith Branch. He is running against Butch Lauder in the March 3rd, 2026 Republican primary for the District 7 Johnston County Commissioner seat. The winner of this race will be the District 7 representative, which is a good part of Clayton and some of the areas around it, but mainly around Clayton, from December the 7th, 2026 until the first Monday in December of 2030. Anybody that is a registered Republican in Johnston County or unaffiliated can vote in this race. An unaffiliated person can just go and ask for a ballot, for the Republican ballot, and they can vote. As in many races in Johnston County, there is no Democrat, so the winner of this primary on March 3rd will be the District 7 County Commissioner for the next 4 years. But before we get to talk to Keith about why he wants to be your county commissioner, we'd like to ask you to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, X, LinkedIn, or any of the other social media channels of the Best Johnston County podcast. The Best Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for around 28 months. So go back and listen to some of our previous episodes with the vast majority of the county commissioners, County Economic Development Director Chris Johnson, Airport Authority Chairman and Economic Development Chairman Ed Aldridge, small business owners, Woody's Computing, Woody's IT. We talk a lot about a lot of great people. Tim Sims, local dentist. We've had a lot of great guests over the years. So go back and listen. If you love Johnston County as much as I do, this is the podcast for you. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this for several months now, but we got it in. So I guess tell the public who you are, what you do.
Okay. All right. Okay. So my name is Keith Branch, and as already been mentioned, I am running for District 7 County Commissioner for this term. And basically, I'm lifelong Johnstonian. I grew up in Smithfield. I'm a Smithfield-Selma graduate. I worked with the North Carolina State Auditor's Office for 10 years. I have an accounting degree from North Carolina State University. And during part of that time as a state auditor with the State Auditor's Office, I was a fraud investigator for the state. There was 4 of us. The other time, I actually was a financial auditor for community colleges, university system, clerk of courts, any state department, or anybody that got state or federal funding. Basically, we could audit their financial records. I ended up, after that period of time, getting involved in insurance. My dad died when I was a young kid, and he was an insurance agent. So a big believer of life insurance. So I got into insurance, opened up an Allstate agency from scratch in Clayton in 1998. Sold that agency in 2015. During part of that time, I actually moved from Smithfield to Wilson Mills, serving on the Wilson Mills Planning Board. And also during that time in 2008, I was first elected in the county to serve on the Johnston County Board of Education, won re-election and served 8 years in total. I'm a term limit person, so I think 8 years and you're done, you move on to something else or move out of the way. I was fortunate enough to get elected as county commissioner after those 2 terms with the Board of Education. I'm one of only 2 people in the history of the county to serve on both the governing boards. Unfortunately, after being county commissioner for 9 to 10 months, I got a new job with a major Fortune 500 insurance carrier, and they told me to go to work with them. I could not be an elected official, so unfortunately I had to resign. Since that happened back in 2017, I've had the desire to get back to being at the level of governing as county commissioner because it's something that I'm passionate about. I love helping people. I love making a difference in our community. Obviously, being from Johnston County my entire life, I've seen, where we started and where we've gone to, and, I want to continue to be a part to make life better for folks.
Yeah. So I guess one question I've got is, why did you sell the Allstate agency? You were doing great. Yeah. I'm just curious. Yeah. Like I was a little surprised. We've been friends for 25 years, but I was like, why'd you sell it? I don't know if I ever asked you.
Well, I really wasn't even looking to. Just Tom Medlin, who was my mentor in Smithville, got me started in the business. Called me one day because he knew I was involved in politics, and he's like, Keith, what's your plans in the future? My son would like to kind of get an agency, and at that time, Allstate had changed the way they do some things and was not as customer friendly, in my opinion. And when you own an agency like that and things happen, it's not really about Allstate; it's about Keith Branch. So some decisions they were making, I just didn't agree with. So, my thought was, I was 50 years old at the time. Hey, I got time to, do something else, but, kind of forgot about the rule about once you're in your 50s, nobody wants to talk to you. So, so I struggled for a couple of years trying to land on my feet. And that's when I landed a really good job. But unfortunately, that restriction came with it. So.
Okay. I was just curious. You were doing great.
Yeah,
you had great employees and, so, I remember we first got to know each other when you were I knew you from the Clayton Chamber, but really got to know you when you were running that first rant campaign for school board in 2008. You were going to get on there and help Donna White and Larry Strickland, our student aid House members who were up against a very liberal board and needed a few more reasonable conservative votes. And you ended up being one of those votes. And ultimately, Larry becomes chairman, and they did a great job for Johnston County.
Absolutely.
And now they've done a great job in the legislature for the last 10 years. Larry Strickland's chairman of the appropriations, Donna with the health committee and all that. But why did you originally run for school board?
Okay, so first of all, back up talking about the chamber. I was actually served as president of the Clayton Chamber 2 different times. At that point in time, believe it or not, there was nobody on the Board of Education that had kids in the school system.
That's true.
I had served on the PTA at Wilson Mills Elementary with my kids. I'd served on the PTA at Smithville Middle School with my kids. I'd served on their advisory boards. I was always very involved in the schools. And I felt like 2 things. It was important to have somebody on the school Board of Education that had kids in school that really knew what was going on and was involved day to day. And then also getting back to my experience with the state auditor's office, I can't explain how much that experience comes into play when you're serving as a board member of a governing body. So, it was a great opportunity. It was a great board. That to me was a true example of, if you got a board that's unified, you can get a lot of stuff done. We dropped dropout rates. We increased graduation rates. We actually won a national award because of how much we had decreased the dropout rate. I came in and, implemented hiring an internal auditor. We were one of the largest school systems in the state and didn't have an internal auditor, one of the few that didn't. I found out the other day that they did away with it again. And just like, Johnston County, something I have a concern about, they've been using the same auditing firm for over 20 years. The school system was doing the same thing. And when I came in, kind of explain, some of the concerns with that, they hadn't been putting it out for bid. Put it out for bid, got a new auditing firm to do our audit, and saved money. When I was county commissioner for the short time, I brought up that same concern and unfortunately didn't have the support to move forward with it. But I just, because of some of my experiences, I look at some of those things different.
Well, I know you moved away for 4 or 5 years. I guess you moved to Montgomery, Alabama when you got married in 2020.
2020, yep.
In 2020.
Had a COVID wedding.
Right. And you came back to Johnston County in 2025. You now live in Clayton.
Right.
I know you were following because you and I were texting and talking even while you were in Alabama a lot. The school board now gets $115 million from the county. When you were on the county commissioners 10 years ago, it was like $60 million.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The population of students has not doubled.
Right.
And the population of students has been largely flat the last 4 or 5 years, despite the growth, because we have ALA, other charter schools, News Charter School. We have the charter school behind Walmart in Clayton. We've got the explosion of homeschool. We now have Thales Academy and Flowers Plantation. We've got a lot of alternatives here, but yet every year the school board gets more and more money. Have you looked at that? I mean,
I've not,
it's a lot.
Yeah, I've not really looked at the detail of what the requests are, being honest. But I mean, I think that's why it's important to have somebody that's a county commissioner that's serving that role, because I understand what's what and what's really needed and what's not needed. And one of the things I did for a short period of time I was county commissioner was I actually built a collaboration between the two boards that had never been done before. I actually was able to implement quarterly meetings between the boards. It would be like, 3 would meet this time with each other, and the next time 3 others would meet. And again, that was something I started, and as soon as I left, they stopped it. But that was a great way to find out, what the school system was up to and what they thought their needs were going to be, and us to kind of have a heads up and review things back and forth. So, yeah, I was surprised when I saw some of those numbers, but it's no different than the county budget has increased 81% since 2018. Now it's $412 million. It's an 81% increase since 2018. And, so it's the same thing. I realize we've had a lot of growth, but 81% is a huge increase.
Well, yeah, it went from 220 million to almost 420 million in that period of time. Some of that's inflation, but not all of it. Right. And so that is a lot. So, I mean, we have the growth issues here, right? And I believe that Johnston County is going to grow. It absolutely is going to grow.
Yeah, you're not going to stop it.
And you're not going to stop it.
Right.
There are some people that have drawbridge thoughts that we're just going to roll up the drawbridge, not going to let anybody in. That's not going to happen. So how do you think the commissioner should manage growth?
Well, I mean, basically, again, getting back to the UDO, I mean, I've not read the 600 pages of the UDO. I don't know how many people actually probably really have. But I think it gets back again to collaboration. The way that all should have been handled was basically, you got all these different organizations that have representation, whether it's the Board of Realtors, whether it's the builders, the farmers, and all those people. And I know there was some of this done, but evidently not a really good job based on the confusion. And, again, we talked about this a few minutes ago, but perception, if it's perceived to be, it is. And so there's perceived that communication was poor. I wasn't involved, but on the outside, it looks that way. What should have been done was they should have brought a representative from each one of those groups together and get in a room and just figure it out. You're not going to win all of it. You get some, and just make it work, and then go back to your groups, and this is how it's going to be. And I think there's got to be more collaboration. I think we definitely have, got to make sure we don't kick the can down the road on, the infrastructure and some of these things that are, appears going to be an issue if we're not careful.
I mean, I am a believer in density, right? Density takes less farmland. It concentrates the houses in certain areas. Now, people agree. I think Butch Lauder probably agrees something with me that we've got to figure out a way to do this, but you have the other people, Adam Caldwell, who's running for District 3, Bill Stovall, that are not for that. I mean, what do you think about building the houses, where they should be built, the density levels, stuff like that?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't tell people they can't sell their farmland. If they want to sell their farmland, they can sell their farmland. Otherwise, you're going to be in court all the time trying to battle that. So I know everybody has their own food for thought. I live in, Carolina Overlook, and those houses are really close together. And, personally, I don't have a problem with it. I know some people do. I mean, it's just personal preference. But, I think some of those things probably need to be studied and make sure we're making the right decisions for now, but also for years down the road, because at the end of the day, the growth is not going to stop. I mean, North Carolina, just recently I saw in a magazine article, as far as people moving into the state, it's number 1 now, has been in the last couple of years. Raleigh is the best place for college graduates to live to get a good job out of college. Well, we all know that they can move down to this area and get a lot more bang for their buck, and that's what's happening. So, I mean, we got to figure some of those things out, but I'm not going to try to sit here and make you think that I know the answers, because I don't, but I don't think anybody does. But we do have to figure it out.
Well, what about the water issue. We have a shortage of water.
Mm-hmm.
We're buying water from all over the place right now.
Right.
There is talk of spending $800 million to take water from Goldsboro and bring it towards Clayton. Is that a good plan?
I mean, I really can't speak to you intelligently, but I'll be honest with you. I really can't.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
Looking at the other stuff, water treatment capacities, they have added a little bit to that. They added it and they're building a new one. You know, if you looked at our plans for trying to get access to the Cape Fear River as another river versus you can only get so much out of the Neuse, and that was a problem when you were the commissioners before. Yeah. You know, do you think they're going the right direction with this?
I mean, I honestly, Jonathan, until I sit down and I studied all the different options, which I've not had the opportunity to do.
Okay.
I mean, I can't intelligently talk to you what's the best thing to do, what's not best thing to do. Here's my thoughts with this type of stuff, and this is what worked so good when I was on the school board. You need different expertise on your boards, and my expertise is financial background. I know, Butch, who's been serving for the last 8 years, his expertise is engineer. So a lot of those type things you're talking about, obviously, he's going to know more about it because that's his background. That's not my background. But what my concerns are is we have all these needs and these things going on, and, we're sitting on this stockpile of money that's sitting there. I mean, our fund balance has increased 340% since 2018. In a 2-year period, 23, 24, we made $27 million in interest off of those reserves. So, some of these things, I mean, I feel like we've got to come up with a plan, and I'm not sure what the best plan is. And I realize we got to take time to make sure we do it right. But I feel like we've done a lot of kicking down the road.
Well, I mean, they 30% of the fund balance is already promised, I think, to projects that they've done, because they still got to pay for the jail, they got to pay for the law enforcement center, and they're going to pay $103 million in straight, well, I mean, not cash, but a cash equivalent for a new high school in Clayton. I mean, I know that's some of what they're doing with the fund balance, and, they wanted to make sure they got their AAA bond rating. Right. How much should the fund balance be?
Well, if you look at the 2024 fund balance in the audit report, which is what I go by, I mean, I know, there's all kinds of talk about all these different things, but I mean, the audit report basically shows at the end of 24, there was 80-something% in fund balance, and 72% of that, 238 million, was unreserved. So, as far as, assigned to different projects and stuff, I know there's been talk about those things over the years, but at the end of the day, I can tell you this: we have 15 to 20% more in fund balance compared to revenues than all the other counties that we're compared to as far as AAA bonding, counties that are growing. That was one of the charts that I sent you the other day. So, I've been saying 15% is what the policy is, and the reason I've been saying that's what the audit report says. I've been corrected and said no. In 2021, you can look at the minutes. It was changed that the county policy is 20%. And our financial advisor, Davenport, says 20%. Well, the audit report's been wrong since 2021. It says 15%. So, but, bond ratings, basically 35%. You can do your research all day long. That's what it says. There's other things that come into play as far as the bond rating besides that, as far as what's going on in the county and how it's all performing together. And so, if you start saying, 50%, tile is plenty of fund balance, and at the end of 24 we're sitting on 72%.
Right. And so for the public listing, the fund balance is the county's savings, basically, and the percent is the percent of the county's operating budget for that year. So the operating budget for this year is around $420 million. It's actually $412 million. Yeah. And they have about $250 million in savings give or take. It's in a ballpark. I'm not.
Well, the audit report for 25 hadn't come out, so I don't.
Right.
So I've not seen those numbers.
Right.
I don't know.
The county has got a lot of building. It's behind on buildings. I mean, we need a DSS building when you were there 10 years ago.
Right.
Why didn't the board 10 years ago move? We needed a jail 10 years ago. The board you were on didn't move forward on that. We needed a DSS building 10 years ago. The board you were on didn't move forward on that. Why weren't y'all moving forward on those things at that time?
Well, I mean, back then we were in a lot different financial situation. When I left the board, the fund balance was 25%. And so, one of the main things that was trying to be achieved was to get to that mid 30 percentile to get the AAA bond rating, because of, that makes the interest less on the debt. So, I mean, we were in a totally different financial situation than things are now, and I understand those are big projects and things that have to be done. But the other thing, with me is, like, if you're sitting on fund balance and you need to do some of the small things that need to happen. I'll give you an example of something, and again, I'm a school person. I'm going to support the school system. I understand what you're saying. That increase is large, and there's some questions to be looked at and answered for that. But when I was on the Board of Commissioners, just for that short period of time, again, it was only 9 months. So some of those things you're talking about, how they even have time to really get into.
Right. No, I understand.
Yeah.
But I mean, that board even after you left didn't do anything. Yeah. It wasn't till a couple of years later that they started making some progress.
Right. But some of the things that I think that, in the interim, while you're trying to figure out some of those big projects, instead of that money just sitting there, utilizing it for some things that need to be utilized. I know one thing that we did when I was a commissioner before I left, Triple S, I don't know if you remember the debacle with the field house where it was mold, and so they had to tear it down. And so, we had just built, Cleveland High School. We just built Clark Holder. They had $1 million field houses, and the other schools, facilities were either in good shape or had been redone. And, I'm riding with another commissioner one day to do something, and we go by Triple S, and they're putting a mobile unit out there for the field house. And so, we went back and we, talked to other commissioners about it. And to make a long story short, we, were able to provide, money to the school system to go ahead and build Smithfield Selma a field house. A lot of people don't realize, probably nobody knows I was even involved in that, but that's how that happened. I know for a fact, and I heard you mention this in one of the other podcasts, but I know for a fact over the years the News Charter has asked for monies, and it's not like a large amount. I mean, it's a large amount to us sitting in this room, but it's not a large amount in the scheme of things. And it's been denied. And, in my opinion, the school system is the number one economic driver in the county. If you don't have a good school system, then you're not going to have growth, and you're not going to have industry come in, because they research those things before they open up industry and they bring their employees. The employees won't know how the school system is. So the News Charter is part of our school system. I mean, they are considered a public school. They get so much money per pupil, basically from the school system. That's money from the state, but they don't get money for buildings. And, I don't understand why that doesn't make sense to help those type situations, because, again, it's all about working together as a county and collaboration. One of the things I've been hearing as I've been out campaigning is some of the townships are concerned because they feel like they don't, are overlooked for some different situations as far as all working together. And I just think things need to be balanced, and we're all working together as one, and we all need to do what we can do to make it the best county it can be all together.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think the commissioner should have, what News Charter was looking for a gym, and it was like, it was $2 or $3 million. And I've been there and I've taken the tour, and what they have for a gym is really not sufficient especially for a high school. Right. And the commissioners didn't do it. And News Charter is a nonprofit. Now, I know ALA is for profit. I look at those a little bit differently, but the nonprofits, absolutely. I think the county should do that. Students are there. I think the county should finish the engineering building at JCC so that the high school kids there have a place to be. They did half of it, but not the other half, because the school board didn't want to allot money to finish that. But I think that engineering building needs to be completed so that there's a high school wing at JCC. There's over, I think it's 1,000 high schoolers go to JCC every day, and that's their school, but they don't have a dedicated space. I don't know. These are, I don't have a vote. I just sit here and talk to people. Yeah. But these are some of the things I think that they probably should do.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's like I said, just, I know that, those big projects like you're talking about, like the, social services, different. I mean, those things take time. We need to work toward them and figure it out. But in the meantime, I don't think we just sit around and not utilize the people's money for what it needs to be utilized. I mean, to me, if we're sitting on all this money and earning all this interest on it instead of using things, we're telling our taxpayers that we know what to do with your money better than you do. We know how to earn money on it better than you can. And so it's just not the way it's supposed to be, in my opinion.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, how do we pay for a new courthouse annex that's going to be built in the next 2 years and a new DSS building and stuff like that if we don't have the savings balances that you would like to see go away?
Yeah. Well, I don't want them to go away. I mean, but basically, if you listen to like the Davenport report that was done just a week or so ago, I mean, basically you got to show that you have reserves to show that you're, financially strong. I mean, obviously, you're going to have to, build some of those things and do just like the way we build schools. I mean, the same ways. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it needs to go back to 25%, but I mean, going from 25% to 72%, I mean, it's a big difference.
Well, the county has a couple, and we'll have to wrap this up here in a second because I can talk to Keith all the time. I talk to Keith all the time as it is. Yeah. But the county can have a vote of the public in even numbered years for general obligation bonds. That's one way to do it. Yeah. But the county can also go to the local government commission and get some other type of bond. And so that's how they did the jail. That's how they're doing Clayton High School. And that's how I think they're planning to do the DSS building and the courthouse annex. Do you understand the difference between the bonds and the rates and all that? Because I don't.
Yeah, I'm not.
Because you were on the school board, so you know about those types.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I understand the difference with that.
Because I was hoping somebody could explain.
I would have to do some research on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we have a great county. There's a lot of good things going on. I think sometimes when you get back to the term limit thing, I think it's real easy to lose focus and keep priorities like they need to be and that type of stuff. And I think that happens sometimes. And, I just think, somebody with my background and experience in the financial world with the auditor's office and internal controls, and just kind of making sure things run like they need to run. And, fresh eyes are important. And no organization does any better than it does when change occurs. Change brings growth. And if you don't have change, you become stagnant. And I know you still got to end up, but I'll kind of just explain to you something. The last thing I've done, my last contract I've been doing with insurance, I went to an organization that had been in existence since 10 years or for 10 years when I came in. And I basically just went in, changed processes, built a team, made everybody feel like they were involved. And basically we doubled the size of that business in 3 years compared to what it was after 10. I didn't change anything other than some processes and getting everybody involved and making it a team. And, some of these folks that are running for different positions that have these thoughts of grandeur, it doesn't work that way. You're one person on a board. You have to work together. You have to collaborate to get things done. You're not always going to have things your way, but you have to work together, and that's the way that you get things done.
I can understand that. How can people learn about your campaign and reach out to you?
Well, basically, my email is dkeithbranch@gmail.com. My phone number is 919-756-2998. On Facebook under Keith Branch. I don't have a separate campaign email account or any of those type things. But you reach out to me, I'll be glad to, call you back or respond. I think that you can talk to anybody in the county that's dealt with me, and they will let you know that if they reach out to me, I'll respond and I help them with their needs.
Well, you've always helped me. There's no doubt about that. What's the last question we ask everybody? What do you love most about Johnston County?
Honestly, I love the people. Being from here my entire life and just seeing how it's changed. Honestly, there's one reason why I do public service, and it's the only reason I've ever done it. I love making the difference in people's life. I've always had the attitude that when I'm involved in something or doing something, I want to make it better than it was before. And that's what I've always tried to do. And I want people to feel like I'm accessible and approachable. And when they reach out to me, that if I've not been able to resolve their issue, I can at least help them try to resolve it and get them to the right person.
We would like to thank Keith Branch for being our guest on this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast. Keith Branch will be on your Republican primary ballot on March 3rd. Early voting has already started by the time this episode runs, so you can go out and vote today or tomorrow. Whenever you hear this podcast, reach out to the Johnston County Board of Elections to find your local early voting site, and then all the voting sites will be open on March 3rd for you to go vote if you want to vote in this race. If you're a registered Republican or a registered unaffiliated, you can vote in this race. Just go in if you're unaffiliated and ask for a Republican ballot, and you can vote. As we mentioned earlier, Keith Branch is running against Sitting Commissioner Butch Lauder for the District 7 seat. Everybody in the county is going to vote. The districts, you just have to live in the district to run, but everybody gets a vote no matter where you are in Johnston County. You can vote in this race along with the other contested commissioner race, which is the District 3 race, and a very hotly contested sheriff's race. So you should get out and vote in this primary if you care about the future of Johnston County. As we mentioned earlier, please give us a 5-star review down below. Also, follow, like, subscribe to us wherever you see it so you'll be aware of future episodes of Best of Johnston County Podcast, and tag us in your Instagram stories, Best of Johnston County. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.